Hello, my name is Dr. Yaya Sissoko. Today we are going to talk about chapter 21, preferences, what the consumer wants. Let's begin with preferences, part 1. The consumer and indifference curve represent our preferences. An indifference curve combination consumption bundles that give the consumer the same level of satisfaction. So in other words, it various bundle of goods that make the consumer equally happy. This means that to point on higher indifference curve are preferred to point on lower indifference curve. So it's a combination of goals on the same curve that give the same satisfaction or make the consumer equally happy. So on the other end, the slope of the indifference curve is the marginal rate of substitution. So what is the marginal rate of substitution? It's a rate at which a consumer is willing to trade one good for another one. So not all of them, not the same at all points. So that rate will change depending where you are on the curve. Figure number 2 display the consumer preferences. We have again quantity of pizza on the x-axis or horizontal axis, quantity of Pepsi on the y-axis or vertical axis. So the origin here it is 0. So you can see that we have the two indifference curve I1 and I2. So I2 is a higher indifference curve than I1. So point like the would be preferred than point C like C, B, or A. So so you can see that here the consumer preference are represented with indifference curve, which show the combination of pizza and Pepsi that the consumer that make the consumer equally satisfied or equally happy because the consumer prefer more point on a higher indifference curve like a I2 right here I prefer than point on lower indifference curve like I1 so the marginal rate of substitution MRS show the rate at which the consumer is willing to trade pizza for Pepsi for pizza. It measures the quantity of Pepsi the consumer must be given in exchange of for one pizza. So so you can see that the marginal rate of substitution here is the rate at which the consumer will trade Pepsi for pizza. Let's talk about preferences part 2. There are four properties of indifference curve. Property number 1, higher indifference curve are preferred to lower one. So this means that people usually prefer to consume more goods rather than less. This preference for greater quantities is reflected in the indifference curve. Therefore, consumers prefer to be on higher indifference curve because this means more goods. Second property is the indifference curve are downward sloping, meaning the indifference curve are negatively sloped. This reflects the slope of an indifference curve, which is the rate at which the consumer is willing to substitute one good for the other good. In most cases, the consumer likes both goods. Therefore, the quantity of one good is reduced, the quantity of the other good must increase for the consumer to be equally happy. For this reason, most indifference curve slope downward or are negative slope. Property number 4, indifference curve do not cross. So to see why this is true, suppose that two indifference curves discross, like we will be seeing in figure 3, for instance, on the next slide. Then, because point A on the same indifference curve is on the same indifference curve as point B, the 2 points will make the consumer equally happy. In addition, because point B is on the same indifference curve as point C, these 2 points will make the consumer equally happy. But this conclusion implies that point A and C will also make the consumer equally happy, even though point C has more of both gold. So this contradicts our assumption that the consumer always prefer more of both gold to less. Therefore, the indifference curve cannot cross. The last and fourth property is indifference curve are valve inward. So this means that the slope of an indifference curve is the marginal rate of substitution, the rate at which the consumer is willing to trade off one gold for the other. The marginal rate of substitution usually depends on the amount of each good the consumer is currently consuming. In particular, because people are willing to trade away gold they have in abundance and less willing to trade away gold of which they have little, the indifference curve are valve inward. Therefore, the valve shape of the indifference curve reflects the consumer greater willingness to give up a good that she already has in large quantity. Figure number 3 displays the impossibility of intercepting indifference curve. So you can see that if the situation in this case can never happen. According to this indifference curve, the consumer will be equally happy at point A, B, and C, even though C has more, of both gold than point A. So you can this as C will be preferred than A because it has more of pizza and more of Pepsi than A in that case. But because B and A are equally happy on the same and different case, but B and C also are B and C are also on the same curve. In that case, B and C would be also equally will also make the consumer equally happy, which is impossible because of B was preferred, C was preferred, C was preferred than A. So for this reason, indifference curve will never intersect, will never cross. Figure number 4 display valve indifference curve. So if you look at figure number 4, the indifference curve are usually valve inward. So this shape implies that the marginal rate of substitution MRS depend on the quantity of the two gold the consumer is consuming. For instance, at point like A, the consumer has little pizza and more Pepsi, when like a consumer has three pizza and 8 Pepsi. So therefore, so so this will require the consumer will require a lot of extra Pepsi to induce to give up one pizza. The marginal rate of substitution is 6 liters of Pepsi per pizza. At point like B, this point, so the consumer has more pizza and little Pepsi. She has, so 7 pizza and only 3 Pepsi. So therefore, she required only little extra Pepsi to induce to give up one of the pizza. The marginal rate of substitution is 1 liter for 1 pizza. You can see here the marginal rate of substitution is 1 liter of Pepsi for 1 pizza. For that reason, the indifferent curve will evolve inward in that case. Preferences Part 3 talk about extreme example of indifference curve. The first example is perfect substitute. A perfect substitute are two good with straight line indifference curve. So, for instance, a bundle of nickels and dime, so are example of perfect substitute. Most likely, a consumer will always be willing to trade one dime for 2 nickels, regardless of how many dime or nickel she has. So the marginal rate of substitution for perfect substitute is constant. It doesn't change, it's the same. The other example of extreme cases would be perfect complement. A perfect complement are two goals with a right angle and difference curve. For instance, right shoe and left shoe are example of perfect complement. So most likely the consumer will only care about the number of pair of shoes. So as a result, a bundle with 5 right shoe and 5 left shoe will make a consumer equally as happy as a bundle with 7 right shoe and 5 left shoe. Figure 5 display perfect substitute and perfect complements. So panel A talk about perfect substitute, such as in the case of nickels and dimes. When two gold are easily substitutable, such as nickel and dime, the indifference curve are straight line as shown in panel A. So you can see that indifference curve I1, I2, and I3 are straight line, and the marginal rate of substitution of straight line is constant. It doesn't change, it's going to be the same. So on the other end, panel B talk about perfect complement, so, such as in the case of left shoes and right shoes. When the two goals are strongly complementary, such as left shoes and right shoes, the indifference curve are right angle as shown in panel B. For instance, so bundle with 7 left shoes and 5 right shoes, which is going to be this bundle, will make the consumer equally happy as bundle with 5 left shoe and 5 right shoe, which is this bundle. Therefore, so the the, so the bundle will be right ankle 5 and 5, this point, and will make the consumer equally, happy in that case.